Oh, they light up here now? After our last meeting, they improved it. Good evening and welcome to the monthly meeting of the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm Terry Russell, Chairman of the Board. The Board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Charles Smith, Inta Malice, Judy Freshman, and Paul Melnick. Also present is the professional staff, including Deputy Zoning Administrator Andrew Noxon, who serves as Secretary to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Norma Cozart, Zoning Administrator, Clifton Hogan, Assistant to the Zoning Administrator, and Cheryl Williams, Zoning Technician. We thank you for being here and extend a warm welcome. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please turn your cell phones or pagers off or put them in the silent mode. On the front table, you will find copies of the staff report for each case before us this evening. I recommend that if you have not had the chance to see the report yet, please get a copy and review it before your case is called. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. This board does have the authority to do 3 things. We can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. We can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance, and we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest, including limiting the duration of the use permit. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that the board find that the proposal meet conditions and that the use permit will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To do this, the BZA shall consider whether the modification will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall footprint size and placement are similar to the structures on the properties surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees and foliage. When granting variances, the board must determine that the strict application of the ordinance would not produce undue hardship, that the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district, and that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, and that the character of the district will not be changed by the granting of the variance. A Virginia Supreme Court ruling requires that a variance cannot be granted unless the effect of the zoning ordinance, as applied to the piece of property under consideration, would, in the absence of a variance, interfere with all reasonable beneficial uses of the property taken as a whole. When deciding appeals of the zoning administrator, the board must determine if the administrator acted correctly. This evening, cases will be called, and a brief staff report and recommendation will be given. Following that, board members will ask any questions of the staff they may have. Next, applicants or their representative will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. If they choose to make a comment, they must come forward to the podium so that their comments can be recorded for the record. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker's slip, which is available on the table in the front of the room. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. We have deemed the following time limits for speakers to be sufficient. 5 minutes for applicants for use permits and variances. For use permits and variances, we have deemed three minutes for representatives of organization and 2 minutes for individuals as sufficient. After the board has gathered all the information they need and discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you are welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. Again, thank you for being here this evening. Please call the first case.
Good evening, and thank you. First case tonight is V-11006-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Kenneth and Magna Hawkins to permit a setback of 17.3 feet to the eave, 18.7 feet to the porch base from the North Wakefield Street right-of-way instead of 21 feet is required. Also 23.4 feet to the bay window from the North Wakefield Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new front porch and a front bay window. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 135 North Wakefield Street.
Board members have any questions of the staff? If not, could we please hear from the applicant in this case?
Good evening. My wife and I would just like to say thank you to the board for considering our application, and we'll be happy to take any questions or provide any additional information if you need anything.
Chair Kenneth Hawkins.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hawkins? Ask, do we have any speaker slips for this item? Thank you. There you go. You have new equipment.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting the use permit V-11006-15-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
Second. A motion has been made by Mrs. Freshman and seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next case is V-11007-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Stephen Thomas. This is to permit a setback of 11.6 feet to the eave and 12.9 feet to the porch base from the North Vernon Street right-of-way, instead of 21 feet is required. It's for a new front porch. This is in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 1217 North Vernon Street.
Board members have questions of the staff? If not, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve Thomas, and thank you for hearing my application.
Could you describe what you're asking to do for us?
Yeah, so if you look at the picture, you'll see there's on the porch, there's just sort of like a flat black roof on the top of it. It's worn out, it's got some weak spots and stuff, and what I'd like to do is just put a metal roof on instead of the black tarp.
And the shape of that's going to be a little different, correct?
Yeah, there's a picture in here. It'll just kind of like slope up from the side and from the front, so it's not coming out.
What it does now is kind of am I seeing that right?
No, you know, that gray strip across the top is just sort of like the shingles coming down. And then when they just sort of stop, and then you just have this black, it looks like this, just flat.
Board members have questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit 11007-15-UP1 subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith and seconded by Ms. Malice to approve the use permit request. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Well, thank you, appreciate it.
The next case is V-11008-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Natalie Pomar to permit a setback of 17.5 feet to the eave and 18 feet to the new one-story addition from the North Custis Road right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required, and 6.5 feet to the eave and 7 feet to the wall of the new one-story addition from the North Barton Street alley, which is also considered the left side property line, instead of 10 feet as required, and an aggregate side yard of 12.8 feet instead of 18 feet as required, and this is for the construction of a new one-story left side addition. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 2500 North Custis Road, and actually staff is requesting a deferral on this matter to the June 10th meeting due to some issues that have come up with a zoning enforcement case on the property.
Do we have a applicant present? Do we have any speakers? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of staff, though, before. Has there been an action taken by the zoning office? Is there a violation, a notice of violation?
There has not yet.
But you anticipate that?
There's an inquiry. We haven't been able to access the property so far.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Can I, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
I have a general question of staff. What is your routine process in terms of establishing ownership of a property?
Our process of ownership? I'm not sure I follow you on that question.
You know, when an applicant comes in and fills out an application as the owner, is there a procedure by staff where they verify ownership, look at real estate records, anything like that?
There's really not. I mean, they fill out this, where is it, the disclosure statement?
Under oath.
Exactly. That notary.
And so if there was information that came to your attention that put that into question, would you have a process to review that?
We really do not have a process for it because applicants can apply on behalf of a property owner. Really, that's not our issue.
Mr. Chairman, for example, they could be a prospective buyer and condition the sale on the granting of, so they actually don't have ownership rights, but they have an equitable interest, let's say,
Exactly.
at the time that they apply.
But if they check off the ownership box, is that presumed to be that they are the actual owner?
Yes.
And I guess, Mr. Chairman, if I might, someone who is excuse me for not having the term, but an affected party, an adversely affected party after the fact, could then perhaps file an action, let's say in the circuit court, to question both the ownership, even if they weren't, say, an adjacent property owner. It could be attacked, the disclosure or the validity of the disclosure down the road. But I guess that's not the zoning office's job, right? Okay.
So excuse me, so if someone had a question about the standing of the applicant in this case, how would they pursue it? To whom would they address their concern?
The only thing that the zoning office would have to rely on are the tax office records. And we would generally tell someone who's questioning that, you may inquire of the tax assessment office to see who is the owner of record, because that's the same owner, that's the same place we would look. But we're not in the business of telling people who the owner of a property is. They can check in the public records, and that's what we would advise them to do.
Deed of records as well.
Mm-hmm. The deed office or the tax assessor's office.
So the onus is on the person questioning this to make a case rather than for you to investigate it. Your
Right,
department
because
would
say if the zoning office told somebody that so-and-so owned a property, and the tax office or the deeds office was behind in their recordation or their notice, I'm liable for telling somebody a falsehood. So we don't do that. We have them go on their own and check the offices that are responsible for keeping up for ownership records.
And then if they found at that office that there was some discrepancy, where would they then take it?
I guess that any office has an appeal process. Say if I made a decision that somebody didn't like, they appeal me to you. but I'm not sure who the tax assessor's office or the deed office would appeal.
No, I'm saying if there was a discrepancy between the application that came to you and the record that the assessor had, to whom would they make the complaint or the next inquiry?
That's an interesting question. I've never had that to happen. I guess they would want to seek legal advice on how you determine true ownership of a property. And that's out of the purview of the zoning office. I would advise them that that's a civil matter and that they would need to contact a legal source to help them figure out how to trace ownership.
That's very helpful.
Sorry, Mr. Melnick, do you have?
I think it was mentioned that this disclosure statement where they certify that they're the owner and nature of interest, it's subscribed and sworn, so it is under penalty of perjury. So I would think, first of all, it's a criminal offense, to commit perjury, and secondly, it'd be easy enough it could be proved on a title search, to get the whole thing set aside as void. But I think, at the very most, it being subject to the penalties of perjury, that's pretty strong.
I completely agree. Just, I was trying to figure out the process if somebody is questioning that, where should they go to sort of satisfy themselves? Do they file a criminal complaint about perjury, or just sort of? But it's not. I don't want to pursue this.
If I may, I know what I would do. Now, I could be wrong. I would go to the clerk's office and find out, and go through the deed of record to see what the latest deed is. And that, I'd either decide, well, I need to seek further legal advice about that, or not.
Clerk of
That's
the
just
court?
what, yes. I'd go to Paul Ferguson's office and look for the deeds, because that's what we all rely on proving that we do own the property. As it seems to me, and the lawyers on the board can tell us if they agree.
Mr. Smith was just talking about the possibility of enjoining the county from taking any action. I just wondered.
From like recording a deed. I mean, you would have a quiet title action, essentially. But it would be an action that would be, I would presume, undertaken in front of the circuit court. Somebody who was interested would file a complaint of some sort seeking to stop whatever was happening from happening and get a hearing to have on the record the evidence in front of a circuit court, and they would certainly handle that.
And is there an issue of standing in terms of making the complaint?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might, the zoning ordinance says, and I think the zoning administrator can contribute to this, that any party who is the language affected, aggrieved, an aggrieved party. So perhaps someone who is claiming ownership, let's say, or I think there are some issues with respect to probate and bankruptcy and the like. So anybody affected, if it's bankruptcy, a creditor could step in, and any number of people. But I imagine a neighbor, a property owner, contiguous property owner I would presume have standing to file a complaint.
Right. We accept a complaint from anyone as long as they give us their name. We don't investigate anonymous complaints. But if someone calls and gives us a complaint and they give us their name and contact information, we will go ahead and pursue the complaint and see if we can determine if there is in fact a violation. And if there is, we go ahead and pursue it.
Do you feel that you've received a complaint?
I didn't hear you.
That you have, that the message that was sent constitutes a complaint?
I think that we need to pursue it.
Okay.
We have to pursue it to see if there is, in fact, a violation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all. Ms. Freshman?
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals defer use permit V-11008-15-UP1 to the June 2015 BZA meeting.
motion has been made and seconded to defer the case to the June 2015 meeting by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Smith.
Ms.
All
Malice.
I'm sorry, Ms. Malice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, the next case is V-11009-15-UP-3. This is a use permit request by Anthony and Pia Clark to permit a setback of 2 feet to the eave and 3 feet to the wall of a new one-story detached garage from the North Brandywine Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. So the construction of a new one-story detached garage. This is in the R10 zoning district on a premises known as 3307 North Columbus Street.
The board members have questions of staff? If not, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening. My name is Tony Clark. In 2012, I came before the board and requested a use permit to construct an attached garage on my property. That would have been on the the left side of the property. When I went to have it, the construction, the estimates we got were exorbitantly high because it created a water drainage problem. The location of that garage was at the low point of the lot, and it would have act like a dam, forced the water to flow down the hill in my yard to my neighbor's yard, whose house is built over an underground spring, and they have a water issue problem, and they've got sump pumps running all the time. So I was very reluctant to proceed with that and aggravate an already serious problem with water drainage. So I've come back before the board to request a use permit to have a detached garage constructed at the high point of my lot, which is the right rear of the lot, where there would be no water drainage issue. As you can see from the photos, you cannot see you would not be able to see the structure from Brandywine, and it would be unobtrusive at that location. So I respectfully ask that you grant my request for a use permit to construct a detached garage at that location.
Thank you. Board members have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Melnick?
Is there a reason that Let me turn this on. Okay, so I see in 2012 there's a setback of 5.7 feet to the eave and 6.2 feet to the wall, and so that was approved. But is there a reason why the request is this 2 feet to the eave and 3 feet to the wall? Is there a reason why the garage could not be moved away from the right of way to at least comply with what was approved before?
The left rear, the location that garage would have been at, the low point of the lot, it's not going to, it would cause, the water runs from the right rear of the lot to the left front of the lot. And the house right next to it is 10 feet from my property. So there's not much room for water to drain if you constructed the garage at that point. So I was very concerned that it was going to cause my neighbor serious water issues that I wanted to avoid.
Yeah, just so I can make sure you understood my question.
Probably
is okay, because I wasn't asking about bringing it over to the left side again, but it seemed easy enough. It seems like there's some space there, some leeway. Is there a reason why it has to be so close to Brandywine Street? Like why it couldn't be scooted up the driveway?
Well, you know, if it's detached, you have to be 8 feet from your structure, is my understanding. You see that in the application, there is a plat that shows that its current location would conform with the requirement of being at least 8 feet from the structure.
It's 14, right?
Mm-hmm. It does appear to be 14 feet according to your plans. So that would be, that would give you a leeway of 6 feet. But that was my question, just about that leeway.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith?
one quick question of staff. If Brandywine wasn't there, that... I'm sorry?
You're going to ask my question.
Yeah. I've learned from you.
Well, I know the answer.
Somebody would.
I do too, but I want to hear staff's
It's
there.
his question.
If Brandywine didn't exist, and it really stops right there, if that was just the back of another lot on the other side, he could put a garage in that corner where he wanted to, couldn't he?
Correct. 1 foot from the side and 1 foot from the rear.
Let me ask a follow-up. And the square footage would be right, too, for accessory buildings in the required rear yard?
Under
So
650.
Yeah, I mean, this is his rear yard, but what it is a 25-foot setback from a street right-of-way. Those of us who live on interior lots that are normal would be backing up to a neighbor's rear yard, and the ordinance allows these structures 1 foot off? I'm sorry, is it?
That's correct.
And so he's 3 and 1?
3 and 2.
3 and 2 instead. So then it becomes a case, it seems, at least for me, what's the difference? Is it better for it to be back to Brandywine with more space between the house and more sort of the yard than to have it closer to the house and space behind the garage? Any other comments or questions?
Yes. As I recall, Brandywine is elevated. Is that correct? I mean, it's higher. My recollection is
We
that
have a photo up there. You
see
can see it.
no, but of the
There's another
existing
one.
shed or whatever it is.
It's elevated. You can see in this picture right here.
So so you don't. You're not going to see the entire structure because some.
Structure, but what that photo points out is the main issue that I've been trying to resolve for the last 8 years, and that is how do you prevent the water from flowing down that street into my neighbor's yard who already has water issues. So that's why the placement where I propose it at that point is the high point of the lot, and it would be it's the one place where you would have the least disruption to water flow.
Well, my point was you have a hedge of a sort as a buffer for the Brandywine people, but also the land isn't level at that point, that your backyard is lower.
Right.
And so whatever structure's there, even the existing shed, you don't see the whole thing, even if you could see through the vegetation, because part of it's, I don't know how many feet it is, but at least the entire structure that's there or the one you're proposing is not quite as imposing from the Brandywine Street side.
Any other comments or questions? Willing to entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I wholly understand why staff took the position it did in denying, but I'm of the opinion that essentially, if this was an interior lot, he'd be able to do that. That street is so little, it has so little impact that I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the alternative resolution approving V-11009-15-UP3, subject to the conditions which are in the alternative approval resolution.
It's been moved by Mr. Smith and seconded by Mrs. Freshman to approve the alternative resolution which approves the applicant's request. Any discussion on this? I'd also note for the record that he has support from all the surrounding neighbors, including the three of the houses that front on Brandywine Street, and the Civic Association. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
All right, the next case is V-11010-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Joseph Moscone, Tara Tiford, to permit a setback of 15.4 feet to the eave, 15.6 feet to the wall of the enclosed porch from the rear property lines to 25 feet is required. It's for the construction of a new left side enclosed porch. It's in the R8 zoning district on premises known as 2408 North Upshur Street.
Do we have any questions for the staff? Not, can we hear from the applicant, please?
I'm Joe Missione, one of the owners of the property. Thanks for hearing our request. I guess what I would point out is that we're not actually changing the footprint. We're just essentially enclosing that screen porch. So trying to make it useful all year round instead of about 20 days a year as it's useful now with the weather around here. So just going to enclose it and sort of make it part of the living room is our current plan. I guess the porch now is a little bit over the line on the plat. So I guess they must have gotten a variance when they first did it, but we've been told that we need to get an additional one to enclose it, so that's our request.
I have a question of the staff. When he just makes a point about that they didn't get a variance when they first did it. An open porch would have been allowed as a matter of right, probably.
Most likely, they were allowed to encroach a lot further than any other structure, especially since this was built in 1950. The ordinance back then allowed a lot more. It wasn't until, I think, the 69 ordinance that pushed porches back further.
We see a lot of porches being enclosed that had been open, and they require this because you could have an open one, but you couldn't have an enclosed one.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any speakers by any chance? Anyone have any questions of the applicant?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Melman. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. In case V1101015 UP1, I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution with the conditions as stated.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Malice, to approve to adopt a resolution granting the subject use permit with conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. Our next case is V-11011-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Brian and Elizabeth Mixer to permit a setback of 3 feet to the right side egress window well, 4.6 feet to the eave and 5.1 feet to the two-story right side addition, 4.6 feet to the eave and 6.6 feet to the two-story rear addition, and 9.6 feet to the one-story rear addition, all from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required, and 4.2 feet to the new covered left side stoop, 4.3 feet to the eave, and 6.3 feet to the wall, a new two-story rear addition from the left side property line instead of 8 feet as required, 18 feet to the eave, and 20 feet to the two-story front addition and front porch from the North Herndon Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. Finally, an aggregate side yard of 7.2 feet instead of 18 feet is required. It's all for a new two-story rear addition, two-story right side addition, a new one-story rear addition, a new two-story front addition, new front porch, a new left side covered stoop, and a right side egress window well. This is in the R5 zoning district on a premises known as 1404 North Herndon Street.
Do board members have questions of staff? If not, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening to the board and the staff. Thank you for your consideration. My name's Elizabeth Mixer. I'm one of the homeowners. And my husband, Brian, wishes he could be here, but he's on a work trip. I just want to say how much I love my house and my neighborhood and our street in particular. We're very close-knit. You'll see I have support from my neighbors on both sides, the rear, across the street, and adjacent to them. And I wanted to start addressing the left side setback that we're requesting. It's a narrow house, and what we're asking for consideration is building a side porch to access a planned mudroom. I'm a stay-at-home mom with a small child, a toddler, and I'm in and out of the house all day with my son, my toddler, and we just don't have any pantry space or storage space in the house. So my alternatives are to go through the garage up 2 sites of stairs or in the front and go up those stairs. And you'll see I have fences on either side of the house, so view or privacy wouldn't be encroached upon. I gave a letter to Mr. Knoxon from my neighbors on the right side in support, further in support, because they couldn't be here tonight. I also have a medical condition, rheumatoid arthritis, since the age of 2, which was not a problem living in this house until I had a son, and holding a toddler and juggling things all at a time has become problematic. So I'm asking for your consideration to allow us to live an easier life, because we love our house and we want to stay there, grow our family.
Can I just ask, how long have you lived here?
It'll be 4 years in July. We found our home Memorial Day weekend.
Young family.
Yeah.
And
But we knew this was a gem when we found it, and we were really lucky to get, this house in the neighborhood that we love.
thank you. Anyone have questions of the applicant?
From the staff report, it appears that you're basically going to build around all 4 sides. It's going to Oaksbay. So is it, and given the issues that the staff raised with just minor things, relatively speaking, why couldn't the design comply with the recommendations of the zoning office?
Well, it's the narrowest lot on the street and the surrounding blocks, so we're just asking for safety, really, on the right side to have the egress well from the basement. I have a kid, and I'd like to have more. We just want to make sure it's a safe place for us to escape, heaven forbid anything were to happen. And then on the left side, it's only a 4-foot staircase at the top for the side porch, and then it jogs into 3.6. So my stroller is about 2.5 feet. So just to bring in a stroller, a child, and groceries, we felt it was within a reasonable request, and you can see from the fence that it wouldn't disrupt my neighbors next door, their privacy. It would just allow us easier access into the house.
Anyone else? I have a speaker slip from the architect.
Thank you.
You state your name for the record.
Sarah Riddlemoser. I'm just here in support of the homeowner, and just to sort of reiterate the need when we're faced with tight lots like this for a side entrance that can be easier with children and with a stroller. From a design standpoint, I really tried to be considerate about the size of the lot and the size of the house in general. I think we tried to scale it well with the neighborhood, and all we're asking for is just a little bit more width for storage and access. In following up what the homeowner said, the basement window well, I looked at a number of ways to get access out of that basement, and given the garage placement, it was going to have to be the left or the right side. So while I believe they can encroach up to 4 feet, we're asking for it to sit 3 feet from the setback.
Any questions for the speaker? Thank you.
Oh, actually, that's fine.
Mr. Melnick has a question.
So you were mentioning, you had investigated other options about the window well, but How about on the left side? Because the staff had an objection, let's see, in addition to the left side stoop. Were there any other options that were investigated? Just
For the left side stoop?
Exactly.
I think, given the narrowness of the lot and the house in particular, I did want to provide the owner as much storage space within the house. So you'll see between the sort of footprint of the existing and the addition we had behind it, I felt it was fair to ask for an open, covered area that they could come in and maintain the width for the storage. So indent into the narrowness of the house may have been possible, but I think that is the limitation they're faced with, is not enough width. So it was, I thought it was fair to come to the board and to the zoning administrator with the question of the fact that the porch is open and covered. And again, I think the way the owners use the house, the driveway's, sort of lowered, and the garage is, they have to walk down and through. The natural path from the sidewalk is up and to the left. So I did want to keep as much finished space as I could of the house.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
I mean, we are often confronted with the fact that we have small lots, and small lots just accommodate less. Can you talk a little bit more about alternatives that you explored?
For size in general?
Yes.
I think looking at the needs of most families nowadays, I think it was about the open kitchen family room concept and getting that in the layout, which is what drove a need for size. But I think all Arlington families face the need for storage, and the mudroom has become a key piece in where things end up when you enter the house. So the first question we addressed was width, gaining as much as we could, maintaining as much as we could. And then I think in the design, leaving backyard, maintaining backyard, and not pushing too far into the rear. We see a lot of that happening in Arlington, where lots get maximized in footprint, and I think this is a good way to maintain some backyard for their children.
You have many goals.
Yeah.
Can you prioritize them in terms of?
I think that the immediate need was width in the house, keeping spaces usable in a narrow lot. So I think design-wise, the limitation was width. Does that answer your question?
Well, you said you wanted to maximize the backyard, you want to maximize the width.
So
which of those is?
I think in order to not have to go too far back and make the house too long and narrow, asking for width is a compromise to do that. If you widen the house slightly, we could avoid getting too long and too narrow.
As I say, we are confronted constantly with people want to maximize a lot that's just smaller than other lots, and that's part of the reality that they have. Their lot is smaller.
Agreed. Yeah. There is I think from the design standpoint, keeping some undulation between the side elevations and keeping some interest in the house. Asking for a way to keep it from being too boxy and long and narrow. I think we asked for width where we needed it most.
Any more questions for this speaker?
Thank you.
If I could take the opportunity to make a comment or two. I think what's revealing for me is the plat, I call it the blue page, and where we've been provided with a nice drawing that shows how the new portions of the dwelling either jut out from or added on to the house. And what struck me about this is that on the right side, there's a window well that we're dealing with. So, first of all, you can see the 1.5-story dwelling outlined in blue. So they're really primarily going up and straight back. And I guess straight out the front a little bit too. On the right, you're dealing with a window well, at least, that's what the staff is recommending against. You're not recommending against what I'll call the bay. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's easy for me to ask you than read through this stuff again. On the left side, we have the family room, or whatever the new addition on the back is, coming out, and I can't maybe note it here, is it a foot from lining up with the rest of the house? And then we have an open porch, which we were talking about a minute, which is different to me from a room. It's access that has a roof over it, access to, and so I was struck when I looked at this, at how much this is mostly a straight up and a straight back kind of situation. Plus, I'd also add that this is a R5 lot that's only 45 feet wide. So if it was a normal R5 lot, we'd have 5 more feet to play with, which could be on either side or split up between the two. Those were just my thoughts. I'd like to hear from anybody else.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I was thinking exactly the same thing as I looked at the plat, and then I was looking at what they were doing with the interior and what they did in doing with the basement, and you know, that is kind of an odd thing for your garage to be under the house essentially, and then you have to go up. That's kind of, you know, most folk have the garage on the same level, and they can go in, and the garage acts like a mudroom in many respects for those folk, but they don't have that ability. They have to go upstairs from a downstairs garage. So, and I was looking at it the same way. It's a narrow lot by definition, and it's very little that they're seeking. It's the stoop. It's the side yard entrance, really, that's the most egregious, if you will. But I don't have a problem really with what the applicant's asking for, and I understand where staff is with respect to its seeking to pull it back in, but it's doing so little outside of where the structure is right now that I don't have a problem with what the applicant's asking for.
Any other comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, let me try a trial balloon. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the alternative resolution which would grant the applicant's request in V-11011-15-UP1, subject to the conditions that are also described in the alternative resolution.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Freshman to adopt the alternative resolution approving the applicant's request. Any comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, the next case tonight is V-11012-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Omar Magansherzai to permit a setback of 15.4 feet to the eave and 16.1 feet to the front porch base, 17.8 feet to the eave and 18.2 feet to the wall of a new 2-story side addition from the First Street North right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, and also 15.4 feet to the eave, 16.1 feet to the front porch base from the North Park Drive right-of-way instead of 21 feet as required, 17.8 feet to the eave, 18.2 feet to the wall of a new 2-story side addition, and 20.4 feet to the eave and 20.9 feet to the rear 2-story porch from the North Park Drive right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's all for the construction of a new front porch, a new 2-story right side and rear addition, and a rear double-decker porch. This is in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 4766 First Street North.
Does anyone have questions of the staff? Not, could we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening. I'm Megan Sherzai. My husband Omar is here with me tonight. Thank you for hearing our request. I'm open to any questions you have about what we're looking to do.
Do any of the board members have questions for Megan Sherzai? Hearing no questions. Any questions of the staff? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V 11012-15-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution.
It's been moved by Ms. Nellis, seconded by Ms. Freshman to approve the resolution granting the use permit with conditions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay. Next case is V-11013-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Karen Webster and Marshall Wright to permit a setback of 5.3 feet to the second story addition and the new pergola from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required. 16.6 feet to the pergola from the rear property line instead of 25 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 13.3 feet instead of 18 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new 2-story rear addition above an existing non-conforming rear porch and a rear pergola. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 2612 Key Boulevard.
Any questions of staff? Hearing none, could the applicant come forward, please? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Marshall Wright. My wife, Karen Webster, is not in town, and she is sorry she couldn't be here. I'm to report out to her as soon as I get home tonight. Let's see. Do you all have any questions for me? Do you want me to sort of summarize the project? What would work the best for you all?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Ms. Malice has a question?
Have you talked to your neighbors about the project?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to say, maybe I should just say just a couple words. My wife and I have lived on Key Boulevard in Lion Village for 30-some plus years, and we raised 2 boys, Tristan and Peter, there. We live in a small bungalow, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath upstairs, half bath downstairs, and the house that was perfectly adequate to raise a family of 4 of us suddenly now sort of discovers to be too small. We have 3 grandchildren now and a 4th on the way. So what this project is about is really 2 things. It's to punch out the back and to create a temporary, hopefully quite a long family room for us, to give us a little more room for this extended family. And then as part of that, to convert this screen porch that we have there by right, we can do that into an ADA-compliant bathroom so that in the future, God willing, we can age in place at this place. We've been there for 30-some years, and we'd like to stay if we can for as long as we can. We'll also double stack this with a bathroom upstairs and with another bedroom for us upstairs that we will use until we no longer can. So that's the plan of what this is all about. The arbor in the backyard is really nothing but a fancy sunscreen. Our property is quite small, and it constrains towards the rear of the property. We have a brand new house that was built right behind us. It's a house which basically is twice the size of ours, and their bedroom windows and whatnot look right down into our first floor family room if built. And what we're looking for is the arbor to, one, kind of give us some sun protection from the south-facing facade, but also to give us some protection from them as they might look in, because we'll have a series of glass back doors on the back of this family room. So that's what that's about, and that does do a little infringement on easements and whatnot, but that's what the need for it is and what the purpose of that is all about. That's the project.
Cheryl, would you mind going down 2 more photos for us, please? Thank you. Get a good idea. That's the house.
The addition itself that we punched out falls within all the required easements. The real issue is that trying to get that kind of overhead protection from that double window you see up there is their bedroom. And they would look straight in on the first floor. But we have that hedge, which needs a little bit of help. It's been damaged a little bit by the construction of their driveway. So we're going to rework on that and bring that back if we can. And the arbor would give us some immediate kind of protection if constructed, so.
I have a question. Have you been approached by any of your neighbors, having received letters and so forth, or about?
Well, we've talked, they all know what we're doing. These folks right here are really our only new neighbors.
So you've discussed doing this project with your neighbors. Have you shown them drawings and?
No, I haven't.
The reason I ask, and probably before another board member would ask you, is that I think the materials that the staff gives out, and certainly this board, is always looking for, even if not support from adjacent neighbors, some evidence that you've had a discussion with them, that they sign off one way or another, they let us know what they think. And we don't have anything in this case. I just wanted to, I thank you for letting me know that you have at least talked to them. Now, you probably won't do another project. You won't have any more room to do on your house if you get this one approved. But, you know, for the future, I would certainly say that sort of.
Well, one thing that we've done here, the bungalow itself, we're not touching the front or the left or the right side. We're just going out the back. And we're going to take what is, I don't know if there's a photograph, but a very unsightly back porch, and we're going to turn that into a much more attractive structure than it is now. And it falls kind of within, for the most part, kind of the easement lines that we have to sort of construct. And we've done so purposefully because that gives us what we really need. We would like to have perhaps made it bigger, but the lot doesn't allow that. So I don't mean to sound like we're unhappy with it, but that's just, we are happy with what we've got. So I guess I just didn't think that there would be much that our neighbors would be displeased with. We're going to add to the look and feel of the cottage kind of craftsman style architecture that we have. And I think it's going to be an attractive structure that's actually smaller than it might have been, and it will certainly be smaller than many of the other new constructions which are taking place all about us.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
May I just follow up with staff on this question? Could you remind us again which neighbors get notice of the hearing tonight?
The directly adjacent neighbors, we're talking probably about 2 lots on each side of them, behind to the front across the street, and 2 lots to the right and left.
Okay, so all the properties that surround this site would have received written notification.
And then we have the placards, the big yellow signs posted on telephone poles right around the property as well. So
Yeah, I mean, you can sense our reluctance. We hate to rule on things and then find out that the neighbors were surprised or unhappy, but I've been assured that the neighbors have been notified in this case of at least the hearing tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Smith?
kind of a follow-up. Do you know who lives, I think you said something about new neighbors. So do you know who lives at 2610 Key Boulevard? Do you know them?
Not by the address, were they?
The people to your left.
Oh, sure.
Left facing.
What are their last names? Or first names? Okay,
I'm drawing a blank.
2616.
Is that to my right?
Yes.
Yeah, Tom Loringer.
Okay.
Tom and
You know
Elizabeth.
them.
Yeah, I know them all.
And 1617, the folk who we see in that picture directly behind on Danville.
It's TJ. I don't even know his last name, but he's a fellow sailor.
That's
yeah.
helpful. You know a name. That acknowledges some communication.
Oh,
And you've
we
told
actually-
them that you're going to do some stuff on your backyard. You're going to have a pergola.
Well, not him. No, I haven't talked to him. I don't see him very often.
Okay.
Yeah. All I know is we're fellow sailors, and that's about it.
Well, who did you specifically say you're going to, and I agree with Ms. Malice, the staff, that there are notices sent, but they may be, who did you talk to?
Neighbors across the street,
On Key Boulevard, so that 2613 or 2617 would,
Mackin, and then Tom and Elizabeth next door to the right.
okay,
That's-
the 2616 Key Boulevard, okay.
And that's because that bathroom,
Yeah,
or bathroom was an issue facing their direction.
okay. You've seen the staff report also, right?
Yes, sir.
Where it has that section, no contact with the neighbors, that kind of a void there.
Okay.
And if you've seen the others, they usually, and some of the other applicants, they actually have, like surveys almost as if they've gone from each house, but.
Well, now having gone through this, I see the obvious mistake on my part not having done so, yeah, so.
Would have saved you some time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Miller?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, okay.
All right. So on agenda item V1101315 UP1, I'd like to move that the attached resolution be adopted by the Board of Zoning Appeals of Arlington with the conditions as stated.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Freshman to approve the resolution granting the use permit with conditions. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion carries. If I may, just for a minute. This makes me think perhaps the chairman or the board should write a letter that's put in the package that's given to applicants, sort of expressing our strong opinion for kind of exactly what we're looking for, because even though I know, Drew, and I know you tell everybody, contact your neighbors, it's in the
The
package.
application says strongly recommended.
Maybe it doesn't have the, force and effect of sort of a letter from the board.
Well, I think that in this particular case, there were compelling reasons. I mean, it's a really small lot. They're only going out the back. Despite that, they're not trying to go to the side or any of that stuff. It's a minimal impact, but it is still our practice, and we have, in fact, deferred items solely for that reason, that were not controversial, just because there was not. So it shouldn't be seen as a precedent in any sense. I agree, but I do think that maybe that's important to emphasize. In full disclosure, I have a family friend who's coming here in July. Of course, I'll step aside. But one of the things I said to them is that you're working with the staff. You don't have to do anything except get up and say, thank you very much, I'll answer questions. You don't have, assuming you get a favorable recommendation. But make sure that you talk to your neighbors. And if you don't have time to get all that in your submission, bring it. Bring 5 copies. But do it. It's really important. So I think anything we can do to say it's close to a requirement, it's not just a suggestion, because we actually take that really seriously, would be a really good thing. And, your letter or something like that would be very important.
Well,
That it carries weight.
yeah, that's what I was
Yes,
saying.
that
I was sitting
carries
here
weight.
while we were going through thinking, well, I know that the staff says that, and, it's in the materials, but maybe, most people are going to read everything.
It's not going to jump out at them necessarily.
Yeah.
And yet,
I don't know about
we put
that.
a lot of weight to it.
Well, that's true, and they might have an architect or somebody else. But actually, the professionals may be more likely to notice that. So they've got, business on the line.
Yeah, if it
and
was,
advise
it'd be one thing if it was a checklist and that was one of the things to check off, but if it's just mentioned, I think maybe it's not emphasized as much as we emphasize it. Good suggestion.
Thank you. We can go on to the next case.
Okay, this is actually our last case of the evening. It's V-11014-15-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Patrick and Ann Donnelly. Permit a setback of 15.1 feet to the eave and 16.6 feet to the double-decker porch spaces and the first floor enclosed porch, and 18.2 feet to the eave and 19.2 feet to the wall of a new third-story addition from the 20th Road North right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required. 12.8 feet to the eaves of the new 2-story addition above the first floor walls, the new rear porch with a 2-story addition above, and 14.8 feet to the walls of the new first floor enclosed porch, second story porch, and the new rear porch with a 2-story addition above, 17.3 feet to the rear cantilevered bay from the North Quebec Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet is required, and to permit a building in excess of 2.5 stories closer than 25 feet to a street right-of-way. This is all for the construction of a new double-decker front porch and a new 1-story addition with a porch addition above, new 3rd-story addition, a new eave for a new 2-story addition above the first floor walls, a new rear porch with a 2-story addition above, and a new 2nd-story rear cantilevered bay. It's in the R6 zoning district on a premises known as 4035 20th Road North.
Do board members have questions of staff at this point?
Not at this point, but.
Could we hear from the applicant, please?
I gotta admit, I'm very nervous. This is my first time ever doing something like this. I do have my letter of statement, a copy for each of you if you'd like to look at it. And I've got 5 additional letters in addition to the 11 I've already given to the county.
Why don't you start with Ms. Malice?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Just one copy of each?
One copy of each.
Okay.
These are from my most immediate neighbors. One of them has cancer, and so I didn't get them until more recently. So like I said, my name is Ann Donnelly. I've been a resident of Arlington for 14 years. My husband's at home with the kids. We moved to Arlington from a 1-bedroom condo in Georgetown when I was pregnant with our first child. I grew up in Tacoma Park, Maryland, so I was excited to find a little front porch community in Arlington, very close to Arlington Hospital, where I've been providing anesthesia services since 1994. I have always been very fond of historic communities and houses with character, and when we found this house, we found that our niche, and have participated in all the Cherry Dale parades and all those things that come along with a very cute neighborhood. We've now grown to a family of 5. Our oldest is 14, and he's getting rather large. We all share a small main level bathroom. Since our purchase of our house in 2000, my husband and I have had to come downstairs to use the bathroom at night. Our son and my husband and I both use the bedrooms upstairs, and our 2 girls have bedrooms on the main level. As our children are getting bigger, our dining room is becoming cramped and overburdened by the functions it demands: homework, dinner, dumping grounds, as well as our living room, which our front door opens right into, allowing us, which is where all of our backpacks go. I've lost a page here, so I'm kind of lost my wording, but here, at any rate, what we are looking for to do, we want to just go up. We have a beautiful front porch, which I adore. Oh, thanks.
The girls would be able to move upstairs.
The girls would be able to go move up. Yes, here we go. Converting the girls to go upstairs. The 2 girls' rooms that are in the back of the house, we can convert into our beautiful family gathering dining space. We can have grandchildren there for Thanksgivings. Our little dining room, which is right off of our living room now, can be multi-purpose for homework and a better area. Right now it's very, very cramped. Go upstairs, obviously the girls need to have their own bathroom. My husband and I would like to have our own bathroom. This requires us to go out a little bit in the back of the upstairs space, but we really don't want to encroach too much on our backyard. We love our little backyard. It's not that big, but it's big enough. If we go up to a half-story on the 3rd level, then our son will have his own bedroom and a bathroom, and then we would finally get a guest room up there so that when my sister and her boys come down from New York, they don't have to get a hotel. They can actually stay with us. Our architect's done a great job in his design to preserve the quality and the character of the house. I mean, the house, when we chose it, when we moved to Arlington, I wanted a house that had hardwood floors, creaky floors, glass doorknobs, character, quaintness. I saved the doorknob from my home in Tacoma Park. So this house had all of those things, but now it just doesn't have the space. So what we would like to do is preserve that. And one of my favorite things about this house is when you do walk in and you see the living room, there's this cute little alcove and this cute little landing, the cute little staircase upstairs. It's quaint, and I do like that about this house. If we're granted this variance, we're just asking to not get closer to the street per se. We just want our front porch to go wider and to enclose just a portion so that when people walk in and they're dropping their kids off for a play date, it's not awkward. You don't have to say, oh, sit on our couch or whatnot. There's a place where they can actually stand and we can do the switch off with the backpack sort of thing. And then I would have that space. We're not actually moving our house closer to the street at all. We're not gaining more street space whatsoever. My neighbors, I've talked to every single one of them. I've submitted 11 letters in advance. I just gave you 5 more. All of those neighbors are the ones that were kind of opposed to the most recent Sagatoff thing, which is happening at the top of our street. All those neighbors that were opposed to that are in favor of mine. They think that this project will enhance the quality of the front porch community of our house, which I adore. I want to stay in Arlington. I want to grow in space. By doing this, then we can actually probably in the future change it so that I can age in space and not move. I want this to be my forever home. I want my grandchildren to come here. I want my children's spouses to come. I want their children to come. I want to stay here. I'm very committed to this neighborhood. I've worked at Arlington Hospital and done anesthesia there for 21 years. I want to stay there. It's very convenient for me. We're not asking that much to change or encroach on anybody else's space. And I respectfully ask you to consider this so that we can do this. It would make our life much easier and enjoyable.
Thank you. Other questions of the applicant? Question of staff before we go further. 2.5 stories in the setback. If it was not in the setback, 3, if you could work them in, 4 stories wouldn't be an issue, correct? But I'm a little confused as to what makes their half-story not a half-story. Too much dormer?
Actually, I have it in the report somewhere. I think under the proposal where it talks about a revised plan that was given to us after the advertisement. So he's showing that dormers are meeting the 50% or less rule, and he's also showing that the knee walls are 2 feet or less. So actually, what he has here is an actual half story on top, not a third story. So, and we're okay with that portion. It was just we didn't have those exact specs during the time of advertisement. So we advertised it as a 3-story as opposed to a 2.5-story building.
Does that mean that the revisions address all of the issues that you are recommending against?
No, just the 3rd-story portion.
Just the 3rd story, okay.
So the resolution, one way or the other, would be correct to the now plan.
Correct.
That's, you know, I look at I read the words and then I look at the plans and the pictures, and I couldn't figure out why these dormers didn't quite meet it, except that maybe it was 51% on one side, you know. So that helps me a great deal. I'm sorry I had to stop and answer that question. We also have a speaker, Frank Durkin.
I'm the designer of the house, and I want to thank Mr. Noxon for working out all the little technical things that we had to have accurate. The only thing that I would like to point out is that we pursued several plans in a by right scenario to try to accommodate the program that they're looking for, which I think is a very reasonable, modest program for this part of Arlington. And it really came down to the mudroom in the front. When we tried to keep it within the existing building envelope, it encroached enough into the living room that it would just wreak havoc and have a ripple effect. We would have to move the stairs, and then that meant that we had to do work in the basement, which wasn't part of the original scope or budget. And it just never really could work out in a by right scenario. So that's why we were really pushing for the enclosure of the existing massing of the front porch as a mudroom, and then relocating, if you will, the front porch to the side of that, and then putting a porch above it as well. But it's really the footprint of that mudroom that is driving this variance request.
Are you speaking of what's marked as foyer? As the mudroom?
Right.
Any questions of the speakers? Anything else, board members?
I guess I would ask the speaker, if you see the recommendation of the staff,
Yes.
and apparently the third story has been addressed,
Right.
but the other issues that they're recommending as being denied, what impact does that have?
Well, that impacts the entire scenario, because essentially the objection by staff is to that mudroom or foyer, and the two porches that are along with it.
The two porches above it?
One porch above it, one porch next to it.
Okay. But the balance of the house itself?
I'm sorry? The balance of the house itself, I don't think there were any other objections by staff.
And the balance of the house, with the exception of the mudroom/foyer, would meet all of the needs of the applicant? In terms of
I'm not sure I understand.
bedrooms, bathrooms, Thanksgiving, and grandchildren?
Right.
So why is the issue so
Because
important?
if the mudroom is not allowed in that encroachment, then that portion of the program moves within the house, and then the program does not work. It ripples throughout, and everything changes.
I've lived in lots of houses where you walk from the front porch right into the living room.
Which is as it is now.
I don't see it a deal breaker if for a project of this scale.
Just that was the impetus.
Can I address that?
May she address this?
Okay.
Sure.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your consideration. The mudroom/foyer was the whole, pretty much, impetus to this whole renovation. Like I said, my son is 14. He's bigger than me. They're all in soccer. They're all in sports. They all have backpacks. They're coming into our rather small living room and dumping everything on our living room couch. I have an arm wall, but it's cumbersome and it's difficult. And like I said, when people dropping off and picking up, it would be nicer to have a space that's a segue. So I was hoping that we could just take our existing porch, make it wider, and then enclose a portion to accommodate that. But with said variance, he said, okay, well, there is an alternate, and that would be to move a foyer into the living room. But by doing that, we would have to get rid of my beautiful staircase I love so much. It would move everything backwards. It would have impact the basement downstairs, because the stairs go down to the basement, which is the playroom. I would lose a whole 6 feet by 14 space of the playroom, which is my go downstairs to the basement, I don't want to hear you guys space kind of thing, and it would basically become, our little playroom would become a closet. So it would have a huge impact on the playroom as well. Then it would also hugely impact the upstairs, because the staircase then would be moved backwards. The girls' bedrooms would be very small, which would, I guess, force us to go back into our backyard even more, and we would lose our green space.
Okay, Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice?
You know, we can't accommodate all needs on all properties. I notice you have a side entrance.
Yes.
Is that not used?
The side entrance is right off of the kitchen, and that's where I'm cooking and cleaning. I've got my sink and my stove right there. That's the only space to the outside, to the backyard for the kids to go to. They either have to go out the front door or right where I'm cooking. So if we were granted this variance and our dining room would become the back of the house, we would have French doors, and that would let us go out to the back that way as well.
I'm just saying, you know, I mean, we all have to figure out where our backpacks go, but you do have, it doesn't have to go in the living room. You could create space someplace else.
Really, seriously, you walk right into our galley kitchen. Right into our kitchen, right where the sink is and the stove.
I'm sorry, we can't tell you where to keep the backpacks, but,
I understand.
but we see alternatives here that in the design, in the area that could accommodate some storage. For instance, in the sitting area that's behind the open porch as drawn here, off the kitchen.
That's currently my dining room. That's my dining room. That's where
your dining room.
That's our dining room where our kids do our homework.
Your dining room is in the back of the house now, according to these plans.
Oh, not yet. Right now, that's the two girls' bedrooms.
Understood, but you have a dining room that's going to be in the back. You have a sitting room off the kitchen that could perhaps serve some of these utilitarian functions.
We've discussed all of this, and we've looked at many different plans, but to address the way that not only that the Donnellys live in this house, but that this house functions, that front door really is the means of egress in and out on a daily basis. To change the circulation pattern to the side entrance really disrupts the normal flow of this house.
All right, we have some questions. Ms. Freshman, you have a question?
Drew, the existing porch now, is that already a problem in terms of, where I'm going is anything constructed in place of that going to be a problem?
Yes, it's within the setback.
Anything? Okay, because of the distance to the street.
Even the additional porch expansion, if it were to be an open porch across the front, they still need to get a use permit for all that.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I have a follow-up question to that for the staff. Granted that the house is non-conforming, you are recommending denial of setback of 15.1 feet and 16.6 feet and 18.2 feet for the front porch all the way up.
All the way up, yeah.
What distance would you recommend approval of
For the second level porch?
for the whole front thing? I mean, you know, because I know that you all recommend something less than 25 feet with existing situations.
I would probably look at the front walls of all the other homes and line it up with that, since it is a two-story structure as opposed to a one-story. Just for aesthetic purposes, the fact that all the porches on this block are all on the first floor, they're all set about 15, something like that. The walls are at least 20 or more back. So to keep it in line and to be consistent with those other porches on the block.
Well, I could probably tell if I could read plans better. This is only coming out another foot. It is going all the way across, but it's only a foot or two from the existing front of the porch that projects now.
Let's take a look.
At the eave. Only at the eave. The footprint of the porch.
Yeah, it's not the actual base of it. It's just the eave that projects one more foot. So really, the porch is at the same. It is just as far out as the existing porch.
All right, so this picture we're looking at, and there's a porch. That's roughly the area of the foyer mudroom. What they're proposing to do is enclose that.
That's correct.
Take the porch down to the left and take it up 3 feet
story.
and have the roof come out over top of that, 3 feet, another story, and have the roof come out over that and have dormers in it for the third story.
Exactly.
All right, I have a second question. The porch that's on the left side, that's, well, there is an existing porch there coming out of the kitchen, correct?
That's correct.
Is this that is proposed any different?
No, we're not changing that.
Actually, you're denying a request to keep the same porch that's there, or recommending denial of that?
No, no.
Oh, I thought that was...
The porch on the left side is not even part of this.
I apologize. I misunderstood that you weren't
We're,
recommending against it.
we would be okay with recommending a porch across the front that is all the way across the front of, from left to right, and doesn't have a second story above it.
It's not a two-story
That's
porch.
exactly. This is kind of that issue we ran into, as she mentioned, the Sagatov house, where they had the additional space above the porch. Then you have this line of porches on the first level. Then you have one going over the top block and the whole view.
There is a house, the house directly behind me, that has a front porch with a front porch above it. The Morris Day house with the green roof that you see, the house directly behind me has a porch above the porch.
I think that is the one where we couldn't find an actual permit for the second level porch.
It's Morris Day. He's not here to defend himself.
Is it old, or is it a...
I believe the porch. I believe there was a permit for a porch on the first level, and it didn't say anything about a second level porch.
There
but
is a
apparently they
photo
built
in
it.
my application of that house from the front porch. And I believe
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what's the address of the green roof house?
I think I have it in the chart too.
I think that's 4024, 20.
Okay.
40, maybe that's 4024. The green roof house, and then the light gray house next to the dark gray house.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
And then the light gray house roof next to the darker gray house roof, that also has a porch above its porch. There's a photo of that one.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Smith?
I guess, well, let me take a look and see what it looks like. Wondering what that will look like, the mud room. I know what an open porch with the, craftsman style eyebrow look of that nice soft curve. I know what that looks like as an open porch. That looks nice. What does it look like with half of it being a room enclosed?
It's in that photo.
Well, you can't photograph what you haven't built yet. You have drawings, though.
There's one you all approved, I think 2 or 3 years ago on Fillmore Street, up the road here. I can't remember the address, but they did the same sort of design.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering. I'm looking at the rear. No, that's not the rear north elevation, because you've got a similar.
Or that is the front.
Similar. I'm looking for a front elevation. West elevation. So if that's the front elevation, right? It's page, I don't know.
Yes. You can't
It
see the
says
line
south.
of the
It says
front.
20th Road South elevation. That's the front. So really, that mud, the foyer / mud room is windows.
Right.
That's what you see.
That's right.
That project to the front. Okay. This one. Oh. What is that? Is that a part of the packet?
But we didn't get pretty 3D pictures.
We'll make it a part of the packet, right? You can give us this, right? Okay. That's a three-dimensional look. That's a little better.
And it's open, is that
That's
open?
the door. Well, the upstairs, yeah, the upstairs is all open.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's just a porch off the master bedroom, essentially. it's the room on the bottom that Ms. Freshman, that we were taking exception with the mudroom. And I was trying to get an idea of what it looked like, and
There's a picture in the packet of a house on 20th Street, bluish house, and it's got all those casement windows. That's the kind of look I'm going for, basically copying them. Just want to have very large, tall windows. I want an open space. I just want to have a space where we can walk in, put our backpacks, our whatever, our keys, whatnot, do the exchange with the kids, and then walk into our living space.
Thing with backpacks.
Believe
you must
me.
go through that all the time.
We got a lot of backpacks.
And all the ones from last year and the year before and the year before. Always have to have a new one. Ms. Freshman.
That's the picture. See right there in your packet
think
right there,
that
Mr. Russell?
the most recent-
That house right there. Those are the kind of windows I'm looking to do on our foyer/mudroom.
I think the illustrations you just gave us are really helpful to sort through the various levels. But for me, they make the case that the two-story porch makes the building massive. I realize you're using essentially the same footprint and you're adding as much living space as possible. But just as we had with this house up the street, when you take a porch, and particularly a porch like this, which is already encroaching, and whether or not part of it's enclosed or not, I could be persuaded is probably defensible, given the uses. But putting another story on top of the porch, as opposed to the main building, to me is actually, once I see it in that sort of three-dimensional illustration, I'm not persuaded.
It's not that large of a house, and I will say that the front porch that I need the mudroom that I so desperately need on a day-to-day basis to make my living comfortable. I also am sad to lose my open front porch space, and that's why my architect was so gracious in finding a way to find a place where I can have this open space that I've enjoyed so much on my front porch. Like I said, the neighbors behind me enjoy that. You don't even notice it, and then the house next 2 doors down from them have it as well, and you barely notice it as well if you drive by the property.
I have a question. Have you considered, I understand the value of front porches, but have you explored as far as having open porches, a porch in the rear? Because it looks like there's...
But I will say that I've talked to the neighbors with the green roof, and since they're facing the opposite direction, I said, do you use your front porch that much? And they said, not really, because actually the way the sun, it hits their backyard better. So it's our front yard. So we get the sun, we get the enjoyment of the afternoon sun in our front yard. They get it in their backyard. So they don't actually use their upstairs front porch that much, and it becomes moldy and damp. So that's why I really wanted to use my front, and that is also part of the character of our neighborhood. I like a front porch community. I don't want to have to go home at the end of the day and live in the back of my house and not see my neighbors and see their kids playing out in the front yard. It gives great value to me when I'm sitting on my front porch with my children and I say, oh, Lily's out front, you guys go outside and go play with her. It just makes our neighborhood much more open and friendly to have that space out in the front.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you just made an argument for an open front porch, not a foyer on the front. Because the sun strikes you in the morning on the front, and your backside, and your backside is in the shadow, the afternoon sun, and the mold that your neighbor accumulates on the front, and all that. But so really, you've reduced the size. You have half of a porch on the front. If you had you have the full front upstairs, but you're getting ready to go to work in the morning, so you're not making use of that really. It's that full front porch that you are not going to have the benefit of because you have a mudroom in the front.
Actually
for your
use the front
backpacks.
porch in the afternoon when I come home
Chairman,
from work.
Could I speak?
In the afternoon, son?
Ms. Malice?
You know, I think in some ways we're getting far afield of what the issues are because we can't figure out how people use their houses or, you know, where they're going to store or when they go to work. I think we have to look at basically the zoning issues in terms of, you know, what is the impact of creating additional mass on the front of the building in an area that is problematic. And I think that, to me, that's where the discussion stands, regardless of how it might be used and when it might be used or what other alternatives could be found. I am concerned about a two-story addition on the front on top of the porch. I think that is a concern. I tend to agree with staff.
May I say one thing?
Could we just talk among ourselves a little bit?
I think it's time for this to come with the board. If we have any questions for you all, we'll call you up. I appreciate it, but I think we've beaten this poor house.
So I think that, you know, going back to, you know, sort of what are the fundamentals in terms of putting massing in front in an area through a variance, whether that's a wise thing to do. And staff has made some examples of how this neighborhood is currently arranged, and this would certainly be a departure from the norm. So that's my thoughts.
Let me ask some questions of the board to get at this a little better. I'm hearing an issue, if you want to call it that, with 2.5 stories on what the front of this house. I'm wondering about 2.5 stories without the mudroom on the first floor. Am I still is okay? Let me also ask, if we approved a 1-story porch on the front with the foyer.
May I interject? I know you didn't want me to interrupt, but I could show you an exhibit of that.
Thank you.
Didn't we just look at that?
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, that's very helpful. Also keeping in mind that you lose the 2nd-story porch, which is but you also lose some space in the 3rd-story dormer bedroom. Not sure, again, because as many dimensions as we'd like to have on these, we don't get exactly that, exactly what it is. So I just want to bring up what all is involved in pushing back those rooms. But we could do, as he's just presented in this alternative drawing, a 1-story front porch with a foyer. And I have to say, particularly looking at the drawing that he's provided for us now, I've seen a few of these in Arlington, particularly in the older neighborhoods, in the older houses. And I'd also add that when I rode around this neighborhood, I was specifically looking for something which was the sort of 2.5-story with the dormers. The older houses in the neighborhood, built before the 1950 ordinance, there's a few of those that are essentially 2.5 stories with big dormers in the roof. Those are my thoughts. I'm willing to entertain a motion or more discussion.
I have a question for staff.
Ms. Mount.
Looking at this drawing, can you determine that something like this would be consistent with your recommendation, absent the denying?
Copy I could look at. Thank you.
Or do you need a timeout to evaluate whether
So
we're on the right track?
so the first floor addition is the foyer. That's what you're referring to.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So that's
Yes, this is more what I envision. Kind of fits in with the other homes on that block, especially the three to the right across. What is this street? We have a photo of those as well across North Quebec Street. They're more similar to this design here. Yeah, you can see them right there, kind of in a line. But the one-story porch on the front and then steps back a little bit. Yeah.
Procedurally, do you need a new set of drawings, or is it simply the action, your recommendation sufficient to give guidance to move forward?
We would probably have to have more specific drawings to achieve this actual design.
Your denial says third-story addition, okay. Third-story dormer above the front porch, okay. One-story front addition and second-story front porch. So the one-story front addition is in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the others aren't.
Correct.
So in terms of the staff recommendation, if you just delete this one section, the one-story front addition.
We'd have to add in the porch can't be built over.
Okay, that can be a.
But what we're approving is a porch that's being partially enclosed. You're calling it an addition because it's enclosed. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
But it would be the staff recommendation. We could add that. Build over.
Yeah, if this porch is the exact same porch in the application that was made without the second story and without the dormer final roof up on the half-story, then I don't see why you would have to have, I mean, they get what they asked for modified, and I don't understand why we would have to put it off for.
My question.
And all we'd have to do is delete part of this, just the one-story addition part.
Right, we're dealing with
of the
setbacks
staff recommendation.
and eve.
The porch. Because the current porch is going to be enclosed, a new porch is going to be built to the left of that.
One-story front
Essentially.
addition.
Essentially, they're going to remove the roof, I mean, the existing porch is going to be taken down and built back, is that correct?
And half of it will be.
So it's a new, all of it is new, and
Enclosed.
half of it enclosed, that's what makes it an addition. The thing of not having the exact drawings is if you get into it and for some reason it's different in final drawings and so forth, then you have to come back to us for a change. But that could have happened if you got into engineering and it turned out to be off because of the, I may say, the ridiculous exactness of the requirements.
But I think with the setbacks they have, they can make it work and come back with, finalized drawings that meet that criteria easily.
Right.
I don't think there's going to be any modification of the setbacks in what we advertise. It's, it's going to be a little bit different, but
That's just
not enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, to me, the crux of that issue, if you want to make it one, that for some reason, the one-story porch in final drawings doesn't match up. But any of it might not match up and have to come back to us. Or you might decide you want to do something entirely different because we didn't give you the other two, so you might come back for something else. Okay?
Okay. Trying to find the paperwork here. I got too many pieces of paper.
Ms. Freshman.
Exactly.
It says this.
Not be built over.
Okay, I'm ready. I thought I was ready. Okay. I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting use permit V-11014-15-UP1 as recommended by the staff, subject to the conditions listed in this resolution. Pause. I have to pause because don't I have to
Tweak that.
have to tweak that to say, but approval of a front porch? No. Wait.
Yeah.
Denial of the first floor addition.
They want to keep, if I might. it
Yes,
looks like
please, help me.
You want to keep the first floor addition,
Yeah, right.
but deny the second floor porch and the third floor addition. And the dormer over the front porch.
Okay, so my motion
Strikes
is
denial.
approving that, modifying the staff recommendation to delete denial of first floor addition,
Correct.
but otherwise maintaining the language of what is denied.
Second floor.
And then you'll have to add in the one-story addition that you wish to keep.
Right, you got to add the first floor addition back in.
But approval of a one-story front addition, a front porch, a rear porch.
Okay, and a first floor addition. Okay, and subject to the conditions, which I will note, number 4 includes agreeing that the new addition shall not be built over. So it's already in there.
Can I'm happy to second that, but I'd like to clarify.
Okay, please, I'm sure.
The first floor addition, the way, could that be fully enclosed under this motion, or just, 'cause
It will be an enclosed addition. The first floor addition is completely enclosed.
But the porch.
But the new porch to the left must be open.
Exactly, the open portion.
And is that covered in what we just said?
I believe, let me see what the condition says. I think it says
Is it?
the front porch shall not be built over or enclosed.
This new one.
They're drawings of record. I'm sorry, I don't see the point in having to do anything more.
This new drawing is the,
Well, so was the old one.
This
We-
came
if you
up.
took
the old one
we just
had this,
denied
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So then it
that's
says,
right.
but
I
approval
agree, you're
of
But that was a
a
very
front
good
porch.
point to make.
Just wanted to make sure that staff has it clear as to what our intent is.
So it just moved it from denial.
You could also add something about revised drawings submitted on this date regarding these here. If this is the exact design you all are comfortable with approving, which sounds to me like you are, we can just say per the revised drawings on this date.
Preclude it being completely enclosed. Okay. Yes, please.
So
So moved and seconded and clarified.
this alternative resolution has been moved and seconded as read into the record by various people.
And
Motion
including,
made by Ms. Freshman and seconded by Ms. Malice.
and referencing this illustration as being what will be and will not be built.
Correct. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries as revised from the applicant's request. We have no minutes. Did we not do anything for that?
Yes, I have minutes. In fact, I haven't
Did I-
changed to
did
the
I lose
minutes.
them? He didn't give me any minutes because I lose the one I'm supposed to sign.
So
Do
give
you want
that back
mine?
to Drew.
I have to heckle them for the minutes every time.
I would move approval of the April 15, 2015 minutes with one change. The pages aren't numbered, but if you count to page 5, on 85-15, it says, "The motion was Ms. Freshman." I think it should be seconded. Because I'm a lot of things, but I don't think I'm a motion. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Otherwise, look good to me.
Second. With that addition.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved.
Yay. Move adjournment? Adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Does adjournment have to be seconded?
And will you, you'll let us know if we're meeting early next time?
Or whatever time. See, I asked because there was the flurry of